Welcome to our Bastille Day French Cooking with Cindy East. Cindy is a trained chef, and she will be sharing us with authentic recipes from France. She has a website. She's cindykitchencouture.com. So look her up, and she does many more classes. This is just one sample of one of the classes, many classes that she does. And we are excited to have her here. And more than anything, it's going to be hands-on, and that's going to be fun. Is just to be able to cook along with her gives us the experience that we need to do this on our own. So for that, I will turn it over to Cindy now. Let me see. I think
Bonjour. How are y'all?
We're good.
Actually, I like participation, so.
Do you want me to unmute everybody?
Yes, please. Happy Bastille Day, everyone. Did you know it's Bastille Day?
Yes.
No. Oh, yes.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Bonjour, mes amis.
Bonjour, Bastille.
How are my French language classmates doing today?
Très bien.
Merci.
Hello?
Très bien, merci. Très bien. Comme ci, comme ça.
So, I wanted to tell you, first of all, my website is Cindy's Couture Kitchen, not Cindy's Kitchen Couture. It's Cindy's Couture.
I did it backwards.
Kitchen.com.
I did it backwards.
So I have been to France quite a few times because I lived in England, and I was stationed in the Air Force at Royal Air Force Base Lakenheath in the UK for 2 years. And how many of you all have traveled to France before?
Me.
Yes.
I have. I don't know if you can see me or not.
It was
Well, there's a
fun.
whole lot of people, so I can't see everyone at once because then my screen would be populated with you all.
Okay.
So, and I don't think actually even 35 people can be displayed at one time, or 21. Yeah. I think there's 21 on right now. So anyways, bonjour mes amis and bienvenue. I'll see my little Bastille Day creation here with Marie Antoinette. Let me cake. So I'm having a Bastille Day fete tonight because for the last, well, today and yesterday, I have been making lots of crepes. So in this class, Debbie is going to monitor the chat, and if there's you notice that there's feedback with someone, Debbie, you can mute them. And then also, if you all have some background noise going on, just please mute yourself. And we'll monitor the chat room. Debbie's going to be watching the chat room so that she can ask questions as we go through. So I like, as a culinary student, again, I'm retired Air Force. I'm a Lieutenant Colonel, retired from the Air Force. After 27 years, I decided I wanted to do something that I enjoyed and was kind of a hobby while I was in the Air Force, and that was my dormant culinary artistic, talent were percolating. So I went to culinary school. So as a culinary student, a huge part of your foundation of your culinary training is the cuisine of France. So we're gonna explore, why is that? Why is France the epicenter, basically, of cuisine, and how has it evolved? And we're gonna take a look at that as we go through this. So I just, as a culinary student, it's not just about making recipes of different, baking and pastry or savory dishes or things like that. It's also learning about the cultures of the world and their history and where products come from. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about that as well. So those of you who are my French students, this is going to be easy because I traveled to France when I was living in the UK, and I happened to go to Paris, and I did not know a lick of French at that time, and the Parisians were not impressed. Not impressive. You could tell when someone's talking about you behind, right in front of you, actually, they'll talk about you. And you won't know what they're saying. But those of you who are learning French rather, très bien. So I always like to introduce classes with a little language before we dive in to kind of get you in the mood and immerse you in the culture. So we're going to take a look at the language, and then we're going to get into the culture, and then we're going to cook. So here we go.
So did you see the chat section?
Me?
Garcia said all the crepes in France are usually buckwheat. I like dessert crepes. And Christian says, I did not know it was you, Cindy, my French student that would be teaching today.
Is Christiane here?
She is.
Ah, très bien. Christiane, you can lead us in this part then.
I went to France and I kept ordering the crepes, but they were all buckwheat and I was all sad. But I ate the dessert crepes.
Well, Christiane is from Quebec.
Yes, I did not know it was you, Cindy. I was so shocked. I said, Cindy East. I was very, very pleased.
Yes, now you know why I've been delinquent.
Yes.
Well, aren't you having class this morning, Christiane?
Yes, we had, and we did some reading, and then I encouraged my student to join me today. Yeah.
They all signed up for this. You have most of your French class here.
Beaucoup étudiants.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so let's say bonjour mes amis. Comment ça va?
Bonjour, mes amis.
So again, all of you in French class have learned that that's what you say, and that's what French people say whenever they talk to you. They say bonjour unless it's the evening, and they say bonsoir. So and then how are you? Comment ça va? And we're gonna say au revoir in about an hour and a half from now. And these two, the next two, are super important. S'il vous plaît. If you don't know someone, it's the formal way of saying please. S'il te plaît is if you know someone and they're a friend of yours or younger than you, that's the informal. And merci, thank you. And if you have a question, you can always say excusez-moi. And then we're gonna say this next word is very, very, very important to the culture of France. It's terroir.
Terroir.
And how many have ever heard that word before, terroir?
Mm-mm.
Actually, I didn't. And I'm the professor. I heard territoire, but I never heard terroir.
Terroir is basically the identity of everything in France. It's the complete environment in which something is produced. It mostly, you probably heard, those of you who are familiar with it, you probably associate it with wine for the most part, the terroir of a wine. But it has to do with the complete environment, say, of the cheese or something like that. So it has to do with the climate, the soil, the air, whether there's, the salty air from the sea, all the sun exposure. It's part of basically the French identity in France. So we're going to explore that a little bit more as we go through this. So that's a little language warm up for you. So we can parlay throughout this. All right. So some quick facts about France. It's a little smaller than your great state of Texas. And the capital, of course, Paris, currency euro. It's a part of the EU, democracy. Most of the people are Roman Catholic. They fought against a lot of Protestants throughout history. And Lyon, Marseille, Toulouse, Bordeaux, Strasbourg, Nice, all of those are major cities. And today we are celebrating one of the major French holidays, Bastille Day. It's a lot of like our 4th of July, and actually was influenced by our Independence Day. And Marie Antoinette kind of gets a bad rap because I think everything was blamed on her. They needed a scapegoat. So actually, if you ever watch the BBC, and a woman named Lucy Worsley, she was talking about the fact that Marie Antoinette, there's no one that ever heard her say, let them eat cake. But that saying might have been attributed 100 years earlier to a predecessor of hers. So, but anyways, a lot of problems led to the French Revolution. And a lot of that related to them bankrolling our revolution, the American Revolution, in which the Marquis de Lafayette helped fight in. So that in Washington, D.C., there's Lafayette Square today commemorating him. We owe a lot to the French. And the French flag, if you look there, it has the colors of Paris, which are blue and red, and then the Bourbon dynasty is white, royalty, which is kind of interesting that it was kind of a compromise. So it's known as the tricolor. Another thing France is known for is the Tour de France. The reason that I became very well acquainted with the French culture is because, not just because I lived in England and traveled through France when I was in the Air Force, but actually in Florida, my neighbors were French, and they are amazing friends of ours. And so I've been studying French with them too, Christiane, you'll be happy to know. So I haven't been totally delinquent. Anyway, they took us to Cotteret, a town in France called Cotteret. And you can see that t-shirt that was in the storefront window. So the Tour de France was passing through Cotteret that year in the Pyrenees. And that's where we had the dish tartiflette, which my husband loves. But anyways, I am digressing. So anyways, the Tour de France, different path every year, but it always ends in Paris, which is really kind of cool. So what else is French culture known for? How about fashion?
Lavender.
Fashion, of course, yes.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I happened to see the Christian Dior exhibit at the Denver Art Museum, and it was incredible. All the collections of his designs were just incredible. Rooms and rooms and rooms, all so different and beautiful. And I was thinking, well, my cookies, I started my business making cookies. And if you look on my website, you will see that my cookies are very, very one-of-a-kind artistic art creations. And so I decided to name my business Cindy's Couture Cookies. And then in the Air Force, I worked with a lot of training development and instructional design. So that led to, after I got my culinary degree, I started developing classes like this. And so it became Cindy's Couture Kitchen. So that's how it started. France is also known for some great French markets. And this is on the left side, a picture of our friend's cheese shop. My friends Denise and Jean-Pierre took us to, we knew these friends from Florida, but they live in France in Pau. And Jean-Pierre and Denise live in Biarritz, which is the southwest part of France. It's Basque country. And our friends William and Kathleen, we ended up spending some time with them while we were there, which was so nice because he's a pastry chef and she owns a cheese shop. So you can imagine how good the food was while we were visiting them. So France is known for its food, and some of what are ubiquitous in France are French crepes. And yes, they do make galettes out of buckwheat. They're called galettes if they're buckwheat, usually. And a lot of those are the savory crepes, like you can put an egg in the middle of them and bacon or ham, and or you can see them rolled up like that. So again, going back to that concept of terroir, what do you call grapes that go into, where are grapes grown rather, that go into champagne?
Champagne.
Exactly.
Burgundy.
That was so easy. It was almost a trick question. So there's a misconception though that a lot of people have that everything is called champagne. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Who said no? And why?
No, because I think the grapes have to come specifically from that particular terroir and not from anywhere else.
That's right. Because only the grapes grown in the Champagne region of France can be called champagne by law. So the government has, because people want to guarantee that what they're buying is what they're paying for, and it's, you know, what's on the label. So it's called Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée, and it's controlled by the government for pretty much every artisan product that is created in France. Every region has a different terroir. And even in Burgundy, say, for example, the Pinot Noir grapes that are grown on one parcel are not going to taste the same as Pinot Noir grapes grown on a different location in Burgundy. So that is what terroir means. And that's what keeps the food tasting different versus, you know, people trying to make the food taste all the same worldwide. So the French are very proud of their terroirs, and every area has their regional specialties. So, where do you think they come from?
Sorry, say again.
They come from Brittany, actually. And so when I went to visit, my husband and I went to visit Jean-Pierre and Denise. They live in Biarritz, which you can see is on the Atlantic border of Spain and France, Biarritz. And our friends William and Catherine live in Pau. We went to Lourdes, and I don't know if that's how you say it, Christiane. How do you say it? Lourdes. And then Toulouse, we went there, and also Carcassonne and Bordeaux, of course. And in Bordeaux, they grow Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. And in Burgundy, they grow Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Yes, you do say Lourdes. That's what you said, right?
Lourdes.
Yeah.
Lord.
So let's take a look at why France became so important to the food world. And it all started with this woman. And have you heard of the Medicis by any chance?
Yes.
They basically bankrolled the Renaissance, and Catherine was a Florentine princess. And she married a guy named Henry, Duc d'Orleans, and he became King Henry II of France. And when she came to France, she was like, I am not having this food. Because all they did pretty much is boil their food and vegetables and stuff. And during the medieval times, this was the 15th, 16th century that we're talking about. So this is the medieval period. And they didn't like eating with forks very much then. This was just catching on. So, but Catherine, having come from Florence, that was kind of like the epicenter of where things were happening. And she brought her cooks with her, and they kind of rubbed shoulders with the French cooks. And so they heavily influenced what happened in France. And then, how many have seen the movie Vatel with Gerard Depardieu? Such a good movie. No one's seen it?
Madeleine, you haven't seen it? Madeleine? I think Madeleine.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, you have to check it out at your library.
What's the name of it again, Cindy?
Vatel.
Vatel.
Can you spell it?
It's
Is
on the
it spelled
screen.
like the man? Okay, on the
Can you
screen.
see the screen?
Oh,
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, it's on your screen. So Vatel was the chef of a noble household. And this was in the 16th century. He was actually Swiss born, and we have to thank him for creme chantilly, which is what? What is creme chantilly?
I'm shouting, oh,
Is
wait.
It's a
strawberries
sauce.
It's
Is
whipped
it a
cream.
sauce?
and whipped cream?
It's whipped cream. So Vatel was, and to have the title of chef, or as they say in French, chief, you have to work for a noble household. It's a huge undertaking. And so you work for the aristocracy. And basically the aristocracy were the only ones eating fine dining back then. And so Vatel had the rare pleasure of entertaining King Louis XIV, because the guy that he worked for, the noble household, had a wonderful garden and a wonderful house that King Louis XIV really wanted to see. So Vatel was, pulling his hair out basically because he had to entertain the whole entourage of Louis XIV, all the courtiers and all the people that came with his entourage to be with the king's court. So during that time, transportation was not that great. Food was not always fresh. So a chef had to be pretty ingenious, because the style of service was called service in confusion, where all of the dishes were brought out at the same time. And because it was mixed with the Italian style and sugar was new, they had salty dishes and sweet dishes that were all eaten together, like dessert and your main course were all eaten kind of like, oh, I'm going to have a bite of manicotti, and then I'm going to have a bite of tiramisu or something. So anyway, the fish did not arrive for the third or fourth day that he was supposed to have it that day. And so instead of suffer humiliation and bring dishonor on his family and the noble family that he worked for and himself and the King of France, he killed himself rather than suffer that humiliation. So, and unfortunately the fish did arrive probably 4 or 5 hours later. So you got to see that movie. It's great. So
it is in the library.
it is.
We have it. Yes.
It's wonderful with Gerard Depardieu. It's great. It's not quite as probably as factual as, but it's Hollywood. So what can we say?
Can I
So
say
moving
something?
on
Can I
to
say
La
something?
Varenne.
Someone needs to say something.
Yeah, Cindy, the garden of Catherine de Medici still exists today
Where?
in France.
Where?
Whichever castle that she lived in, and it was a really great program. There was a book there was a series on television. He's an English sort of gardener, and he goes to all the famous gardens, and it shows you her garden because it was so important.
Yeah, that is very true, that these noble houses, these houses of the aristocrats, and Versailles included, King Louis XIV's Garden of Versailles, actually was what they grew there was what they had for dinner. And that's the purpose of the garden, was to feed the people, the aristocracy. Because on that subject of gardening, Louis XIV actually brought in a gardener who introduced all these, he propagated different varieties of apples. At one time in the old world, there were like 80 varieties of apples in France. And now there's like 10. So because of mass production and stuff like that. So yeah, the gardens were very, very, very important for people back then. So La Varenne was also very famous for writing Le Cuisinier Francois, which is basically kind of the foundation for bringing the identity of food to what is modern day considered French. He got away from the heavily spiced foods of earlier periods in the medieval period because, again, the food wasn't always fresh. So you used a lot of cumin to disguise the smell. Chefs had to repurpose things. Meat wasn't always, you had to eat the same things the next day and have it look brand new. So a chef had to be very ingenious. And La Varenne basically got away from all those expensive exotic spices like cinnamon and all of that that was used for, you know, to repurpose food. And he started incorporating butter and fresh herbs and things that are more associated with French food. He, you know, mixed in black truffles to a butter sauce, that kind of thing. So La Varenne and King Louis XIV. Louis XIV was a gourmand. Varenne worked and basically codified recipes like mother sauce. Well, things like bechamel, which we're going to make today. He might not have been the first chef to create it, but he was the first to document it, the recipe. And that book, Le Cuisinier Francois, basically was used to train chefs in that period. So moving on, Carême, Marie-Antoine Carême, or Antonin as he became known, because he didn't want to be associated with Marie Antoinette, who he is named after. He actually became the founder of haute cuisine, which La Varenne actually was doing, but it actually became recognized as haute cuisine under Carême. And so Carême was dropped off in Paris at about 10 years old because his father thought, oh, he's the brightest of 10 kids, so I think he'll make it. And this was like right during the time of the French Revolution, or shortly thereafter, 1789. And he was like, well, I need to eat, so maybe I can work for room and board at this butcher shop. So he started there. And then he eventually went to work for a very well-known pastry chef, and he was interested in architecture. So he would create these edible like pieces of architecture based on, you know, the buildings and the scenes around him, and the shop owner put it in his window, and it drew so many people that eventually, you know, he became famous, and Carême went out on his own and opened his own pastry shop. He actually was the first celebrity chef because he was known as the chef of kings and the king of chefs because he created such opulent, amazing works of art that were edible. And he also created things like the toque, the chef's hat, ratatouille, the little toque. And he also created and wrote down recipes for the mother sauces. So after him came the guy who basically changed everything. And in the period of the 19th and 20th centuries, this is the guy that created modern French cuisine. Auguste Escoffier wrote Le Guide Culinaire, which is really a foundational book for chefs still today. Well, it was back in the early 20th century. And so he's the father of modern French cuisine. He was in the army. He started, like all chefs, they usually started when they were very young, apprenticing and learning by observation and practice, because nothing was written down until Le Cuisinier Francois was one book, and Carême wrote other stuff, and there's other people that wrote books. But most of the time before them, they had to learn by observation and practice, and that's how Escoffier started as well. But then he had to fight in the Franco-Prussian War. Actually, he was an army chef. And during the time in the army, all the discipline and order and all that, he brought that learning back to the kitchen and created the brigade system. So before that, a lot of people were getting hurt in the kitchen because there wasn't an assembly line. There was like one person working from start to finish on one dish. He created the assembly line. So every person would have a part or a duty in that kitchen, and it was very orderly. And so the dish passed from person to person, or, you know, the service. He also created multiple course service. So instead of everything being served at the same time. he also created what I'm wearing right here, my chef jacket. And he elevated the role of chef because he and his friend Cesar Ritz started the Savoy Hotel in London. And so that changed everything because that basically introduced the masses who could come through the doors of the Savoy to fine dining. So that elevated people's awareness, people's tastes, because she drove the tastes of the people. So he did a whole lot for the profession. And so going through the evolution of French cuisine from classic to contemporary, you have what you have now is still, the difference between fine dining and say family or bourgeois middle class cuisine. It's also known as a class, but it's also a cuisine, bourgeois cuisine. And it's just like coq au vin, boeuf bourguignon, that kind of thing. It's very hearty, and it's what a lot of people in France eat and when they're not doing the fine dining thing. And then Carême was classique, high or grand cuisine. Escoffier was haute cuisine. And then Fernand Point is nouveau cuisine. And he apprenticed people like Paul Bocuse, Alain Ducasse, all these chefs that are, there's more chefs now in Las Vegas than any place in the world.
Mhm.
So a lot of these, like Paul Baloud, all these French chefs have restaurants in Las Vegas. So it's a lot of fun to go there. And when I was a senior or basically my final semester in culinary school, I went to Vegas Uncorked, and you get to meet all these guys. It's amazing, and eat all their food too. It was really fun. So I highly encourage you to check out Vegas Uncorked. And so you have also now Ferran Adria, who created a new, again, cuisine's always evolving, and now molecular gastronomy is kind of a combination of art and science in terms of creating food that is something that doesn't even look like food or is something different than what you're thinking you're eating. It's kind of like Willy Wonka. Yeah, it's like that. So, how did it get to America?
Julia Child.
This woman right here, who is known for some fantastic and funny quotes, such as "I enjoy cooking with wine. Sometimes I even put it in the food," or "A party without cake is just a meeting." So, does anybody have any funny recollections of Julia Child that they can share?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, Julia Child, for luck, she always beats her dough 3 times with her rolling pin. So I always do that. And I have all the books on Julia Child.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah.
So do you know that she was instrumental in introducing women into the culinary field, because she through her cooking show on PBS in 1961, she was the first woman on TV. And she was the first woman to go to Le Cordon Bleu culinary school in Paris. And she happened to take this term because she met her husband, Paul Child, when I believe they were both working for the State Department, and he got an assignment to France. And on the way there, he took her to a fine dining restaurant, which basically changed her life. And so she enrolled in Le Cordon Bleu. She met Simone Beck and Louisette Berthold, I believe it is, and they created a cookbook called Mastering the Art of French Cooking. And that led to her TV shows, which, she really made French cuisine approachable for the American household by her funny mistakes and the way she, characterized mistakes, which happen in cooking. They happen all the time. So like her little potato pancake that she flipped and it went all over the place. And then she put it back together and she said, well, if you're alone in the kitchen, who's to see? So, yeah, she had so many quotes. And she said, people who love to eat are always the best people, which I so concur with. That's like who I am. I love to eat. So are there any questions at this point? All right, Ale, let's get started then. And someone want to read that quote? Can you all see that? Will I change positions here?
The best way to execute French cooking is to get good and loaded and whack the hell out of a chicken.
Awesome.
And anybody remember the little chicken deboning episode?
Yes.
That was a good one. Okay. So,
Cindy, I have a question.
yes.
Maybe I missed it, but what was the origin of crepe?
Brittany came from Brittany.
Right, I know, but
As far as a story, I don't have
yes.
one for you. But
Okay.
that, if you can email me, if you do some research, let me know
Okay,
if you find something.
all right.
And my email is cindy@cindyscouturekitchen.com.
All
So
right.
yeah, if you guys want to correspond with me about things like that was a great question. I really would love to know that, but I didn't have time and all the other things I've been researching to look that up. But I really intended to. So yeah, if you wanted to share that, that'd be great. So if you all were able to find the buckwheat, you know, we're going to make savory crepes first, and I'm going to stop sharing.
That's correct. I was just about to tell you that.
And do you have my video pinned?
Where are you? It should still be on you. Where are you? Okay.
But we don't have to.
No, you're on the spotlight. I want you to go onto speaker view there. Is that big? She's big for everybody, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to start with a savory crepe.
Cindy, do you want us to cook along with you, or are you doing
My
demos?
classes, I usually always do demonstration and then performance. So first I demonstrate it, and then, you know, you can do the performance. After I do, you know, if you feel comfortable and you've done this, how many of you have made crepes before?
I have to season the thing, right? The crepe. I've done them before. We're not seasoning them right now. I have the batter. I have not put the sweetness thingy in the thyme. I have to put those in,
the
right?
herbs, you mean? The herbs?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you go ahead and do that. And I mean, it's up to you as far as, you know, how much you can pay attention and watch, and, you know, how much you need to watch and how much you already know. So I'll leave it up to you. But I like to demonstrate it first and then give you guys a chance to go ahead and go for it. And then ask any questions along the way. So I'm going to heat my pan, and I have a crepe pan. I'm going to show you down here. My pan is an actual low-lipped crepe pan, which is in the chef's store. Unfortunately, Target bought them and put them out of it. But you can see that it's got a really lip. So you might want to mute that person.
I'm going to mute everybody.
Okay.
Let me unmute you, though.
Okay. So in the instructions, this recipe is so...
Hold on. Cindy, wait a second.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. When I muted all, it muted you too. So you were saying it's so versatile?
Yes. Okay, so you can make these way ahead of time and freeze the crepes and then just pull them out of the freezer. And in the recipes that I gave Debbie that she sent you, you should see the instructions on how to freeze them, how to thaw them, etc. So that is in the recipes that you have. All right. So my pan is heating up.
Are you on medium?
At what temperature do you put it? Do you put it at like medium high, low?
I put it on medium high. I mean, a little above medium, not really medium high, but just a tad above medium. And that's just to get it hot because I don't want to have you guys waiting all day for my pan. And while that's heating up, I'm going to talk about my mise en place. What does mise en place mean? Anybody know? It's a French word. Christiane, where are you?
I
Oh,
have no idea what it is. What is
okay.
it?
You have to unmute,
Put
Debbie,
in place.
I need to unmute Christian.
or everybody, so that they can.
I'm unmuted now.
Okay. Mise en place. What does that mean?
Which is?
Mise en place.
Oh, mise en place means to put in its place.
Right. Everything in its place.
Preparation.
Yeah.
Everything's in its place. So in culinary speak, that means you have everything ready to go. And so for my mise en place, I have, for my savory crepes, I've got my batter, which I made last night, and I'm gonna stir that up. And I've got some herbs of lemon thyme in mine, but you could add whatever herbs you like. And I have my paper towel that I'm going to use to kind of wipe off my pan once I spray it, because I'm going to use canola oil, this one. But you can use butter, and most French people use butter. Everything's better with butter. Julia would concur with that. So I also have all the fillings that I'm going to use in what I'm going to show you. The dish I'm going to make, which can be made and frozen. It's a great entertaining dish. It's also in the recipe. So in addition to that, I have my offset spatula. What in the world is going on? This is weird. Hold on a minute. Okay. My computer just decided to bring up my email, which I don't know why. But anyway, here is my offset spatula, and you'll need something like this. And you'll also probably use your fingers. So, all right.
Called? What is it even called?
So you might want to mute yourself again, unless you have a question for me. I'm gonna spray my pan. I like to do it over the sink so it doesn't get the canola oil spray all over. And the other thing you can do is write a question in the chat. If you have a question and a lot of people are talking, or I'm talking, or whatever, you can always write it in the chat. So I think my pan's about ready, and I am wiping the pan off because I don't want a whole lot of oil in there, and I can always reuse this later. So how many of you are cooking with me?
I am.
Can you tell me how many, Debbie?
Let me see, everybody. Okay, so participant, raise your hand. Almost everybody.
Really? That's awesome. Okay,
We've
so
got
my
a
pan
lot of
is
people.
hot. And so I'm ready to pour in my batter, and it's really kind of a rotation thing. So and then if you have excess, you can just pour it back into the pan. Voila. See that? And there's my crepe. And I have thyme in there. This kind of big piece of, but it's all right. It's going to taste good. So any questions so far? And you can unmute them, Debbie.
Yeah, everybody. Well,
If I ask that, then maybe you could unmute.
Everybody's unmuted. We just wait until we see a little bit golden around the edge, right?
Okay, so what you want to look for, you can see the laciness of this, and it's starting to look dry. That's what you want to look for, is it
Oh,
looks
the
dry.
dryness. Okay.
So I'd give it about a minute on the first side. And just like pancakes, sometimes the first one doesn't turn out and maybe you don't get the hang of it quite yet. And so, you know, it might take a couple to get your rhythm. But don't worry, you'll get it. It comes pretty quickly. And so what I do is I tease the edges up with my spatula, and then I just take a look, and it's not quite there, so I'm going to just let it cook a couple of seconds longer.
Stay over there. Okay. All right. Good. Yes.
Okay, so I think it's about ready now to turn. So what I do is I lift it, and I put my spatula under it, and then I bring it up, and then kind of roll it back down.
I love the smell of the fresh herb.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go. Voila.
Voila.
So as you notice, this is the pretty side. The first side is the pretty side. And then the not public side is what's cooking now. So that just needs about 30 seconds.
I did mine wrong, but it still looks nice. Or it tastes nice.
I didn't hear that.
I did pour mines correctly, but it still tastes nice. So
Is it too thick? You left too much batter.
no, I poured too little, and then it didn't spread out into a circle. So I'm just thinking this one's a taste test.
Yeah.
Because it's way too small.
So Cindy has a great eye. I used a measuring cup, just a scant quarter cup, 3 tablespoons.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, ready, and I'm just gonna drop it down. So I have the not for public side facing up, and I'll do one more for you. I don't
Which
have
side do you have facing up? The good side?
No, the not for public side.
Okay.
The second side. I just flipped it over like that, and it fell out
Okay.
on the plate.
Got it. Okay, there's
All right,
my.
so I'm gonna do one more for you.
And you oil in between each?
Nope. No, I said I don't oil. Because one time is generally enough. Okay, so there's my second crepe. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with these. So first I'm going to lay a piece of ham down.
Okay.
Followed by Swiss cheese or whatever your favorite is. It doesn't really matter. You can also use whatever kind of meat you want. Turkey, chicken. There's all kinds of things you can do with crepes. They're so versatile. So, and then I have my asparagus, which I blanched. And so I'm going to grab about 4 or 5 spears and put that in the middle. And then I'm just going to roll it up. And then I'm going to put it seam side down in a casserole dish. And I'm going to keep going. So it looks like this. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
And then you can freeze this. You can heat it in the oven. And we're going to be making a bechamel. We're going to be making a bechamel sauce. Mute that.
I'm trying.
Please do.
Going through and having to mute everybody by themselves.
So she blanched hers.
So if you,
I would do. So again, you've got your ham, your cheese. Who has doggy barking? Can you mute yourself?
I do. I'm sorry because they're golfers outside and he sees them.
oh, just go ahead and mute yourself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to mute everybody one at a time so I don't mute you.
Okay, how do let me see if
I
I can
gotcha.
go on and unmute.
I gotcha. Okay. It was just a
Okay,
matter
and
of finding.
And then the asparagus, okay? So that is how you do it. And then you just roll it up and keep going till your casserole dish is full or whatever you want to use these for. And you can also, like I said, just freeze them. So that's the non-public side that is facing up, and you just keep going. Now, once you have your crepes all assembled and put together, you're gonna wanna serve them with your bechamel sauce. So how do you make, what is a bechamel anyway?
Isn't it cheese and milk?
Nope.
No? Flour. Flour and butter.
That's correct. Well, that's partly correct. That's not all of it. It's one of the mother sauces. And again, La Varenne documented it in Le Cuisinier Francois for the first time. There's 5 mother sauces. Bechamel is one of them. And to make a bechamel, you make a roux first. And La Varenne was the first to document the roux as well. So a roux is simply equal parts butter and flour. So we're going to start with 3 tablespoons butter, and then add to that, once the butter is melted, 3 tablespoons flour. And a bechamel is a blonde roux. If you've ever been to New Orleans, you know there's lots of colors of roux, from blonde to brown. How many of you have made a bechamel before? Anybody?
I've made bechamel.
Especially for macaroni and cheese.
Exactly. So bechamel is the mother sauce. And again, the mother sauce is like the start of all other sauces. So there's 5 mother sauces. Hollandaise is also like a beurre blanc is a part of that. But bechamel is one. And from that, you can make secondary sauces, of which we're going to make one today called Mornay, which just means cheese. Okay, so it's a bechamel that you add cheese to. And that's what you can use for macaroni and cheese. But you can also make, anybody in San Antonio or Bulverde, have you ever had sausage and biscuits?
Yes.
That starts with a bechamel. Moussaka starts with a bechamel. There's all kinds of sauces that start with a bechamel. Or that, you know, are straight bechamel. So my butter is getting there. And I've got my flour, my nutmeg, and my milk. And that's 1 cup of milk. So I have that ready to add. And then I also have some water, because you're probably going to need to thin it to whatever consistency you like, but it's going to thicken up. So you're going to need to thin it. And of course, salt and pepper. So I'm ready to add my flour. So again, it's a blonde roux. That means you don't want to brown it. You just want it to cook the flour out. So you want to get it to the consistency of wet sand. okay? And cook it for a couple minutes to cook out that flour taste. And you want to keep whisking so that it doesn't burn or turn brown and that there's no lumps, okay? So can you all see that? It looks kind of like wet sand.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think it's about another 30 seconds and we'll add our milk. So Christiane, are you cooking crepes with us? Or are you just watching?
I'm just watching, and I might have to go after this one.
Oh, I just had a thought. Is the term voyeur French? Is that a French word?
Voyeur?
Yeah. It means to watch, right?
It's a French word, but I don't think it means the same thing as the way it's used in English.
Ah. Well, anyways, I wish you could tell us what is your experience with your favorite crepe? Like, what do you like to eat in Quebec?
My favorite experience with crepes, there's two of them. There's when I was, maybe I should put my video on so you guys can see me. My first one is when I was very young, I worked for this couple who had a French creperie. I believe I was an au pair.
Oh.
And, they own a creperie in Montreal. So they used to take me there all the time, and they showed me how to, and I would hang out in the kitchen and I would watch the cooks make the crepes.
That's awesome.
And then I would eat them, of course.
Of course. Bien sûr.
My second is when I visit my brother, who's a gourmet cook. He always makes fresh crepes for me for breakfast with the fresh raspberries that he grows in his backyard.
Oh, how nice. Oh, wow. That sounds delicious.
I definitely prefer the sweet crepes. I like some savory, but mostly sweet.
Uh-huh. So what's your favorite sweet crepe? The raspberry?
Yes.
Yeah, the fresh raspberry. Oh, that sounds so good. With crème chantilly?
Crème chantilly or sirop d'érable.
Well, we're going to make the crepe Suzette today. So we're going to make the Suzette, give it a bath in the orange sauce.
I love crepe Suzette as well.
Yeah.
When I lived in France, crepe Suzette was definitely on the top of my loving list.
So did you grow up in Montreal?
Yeah, I grew up in the suburb of Montreal, and then
I love Montreal. I was stationed in upstate New York at Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, and I got to go to Montreal a couple times, and Cirque du Soleil was headquartered there.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's where they got all started, and
Yeah.
they had to file for bankruptcy because of COVID.
No,
Yeah.
that is so sad. Oh, that's awful. Well, I am sorry to hear that, but I am happy to learn you're from Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal. I lived there when I was a young adult, which was not for very long because I moved to Los Angeles shortly after that.
Okay, so everybody see that I added the milk, and look at how creamy and nice this looks. There's no lumps. And so this is the bechamel, and all you do is add a touch of nutmeg, which is the classic sauce, and it adds this undertone of flavor that's amazing. And then you want to add your salt a little bit, not a lot at this point, because you're going to be adding cheese to make this a secondary sauce called Mornay. So I'm ready to add my cheese, and that's going to really thicken it. So I've got half a cup of Gruyere and half a cup of Parmesan. And it's up to you. You can add whatever cheese you want for your Mornay. If you like, again, macaroni and cheese, you like cheddar, you like brie, whatever you like, you can add it. And it's going to be a Mornay sauce. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of water because it's pretty thick. Okay, voila. It's coming together, melting nicely. Any questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How long, in a lot of cookbooks today, they tell you how long something's going to take. So if you were preparing crepes for, say, 6 people, well, maybe 10 crepes or 12 crepes and bechamel sauce, how long does that all take?
Well, it just depends on how quick you are.
Yeah.
And how, that really is just a general idea, and it all depends on the person, but
Mm-hmm.
and how many crepes you make and that kind of thing. This recipe makes about anywhere, again, that depends on the size of your pan and how thick you pour your crepes. But it makes anywhere from 9 to 12, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just depends. Just the crepe making doesn't take that long, probably a half hour. But the resting of the batter is what is critical.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want this to be like a spreadable consistency. So I like to warm my crepes up so that they're kind of crunchy or crispy a little bit, not just totally soft. So I warm them in the oven, and then you can either plate them individually or pour this sauce on the whole casserole when it's ready to serve. You don't want to do it before then and then put it in the oven to warm up, because then it's going to definitely, it'll definitely soften the crepes. And I kind of like the little crunch. So voila, there you have the Mornay sauce made from the base mother sauce bechamel. Any questions on that? No? Okay, so let's make some sweet crepes. And for the sweet crepes, the sky is the limit, basically. What are some of the fillings that you all have that you're going to put onto your sweet crepes today? Anybody?
Lemon curd.
Very nice. I love lemon curd. That is one of my favorites.
I'm gonna do lemon and sugar.
Oh, that sounds great. I think that is really a popular one. The simple.
It was my favorite one in France.
Oh, there you go. A lot of people in France really love that. So my pan is warming up again, and I have my sweet crepe batter, and I also have all my fillings. And for me, I like Nutella. So I have Nutella and bananas and strawberries. That's one of my favorites. But, you can do all kinds of things. Coconut, cashews, pineapple, all kinds of things. You could do a tropical one. You can do the classic versions. There's so many things that you can put in crepes. So, again, I'm waiting till it gets hot before I pour my batter in. But I definitely want to stir my batter, make sure there's no flour collected on the bottom and it's light on the top. So I incorporate it again so that everything is nicely mixed together. And while this is heating up, I'm also going to be heating up my honey for the crepe Suzettes. So the honey's got to melt, and then you're going to add the 1/4 cup lemon juice and 1/3 cup orange juice to that. And then you're going to incorporate butter 1 tablespoon at a time and make sure it's emulsified. So constantly whisking it so that it's emulsified. So any questions for me so far? Everybody's good? No problem? All your crepes are turning out nice?
No, they still, but they're edible, so.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you gotta look at it. You know, it's all gonna taste really good, and it's all gonna end up going into your stomach and making you happy.
One point
So-
with the crepe, just fold it up. So instead of wrapping the ham in crepe, I wrap the crepe in ham
Okay.
because it just the crepe became so small in the pan because it got folded and stuff.
Well, sometimes in cooking, new recipes are created that way. So you just have to improvise sometimes. Okay, so my sweet batter is ready to go. I've stirred that up. That's looking good. And my pan is pretty hot. So this batter has sugar in it, so it could splatter a little bit more than the other one, but it looks okay. And again, you just pour the excess off. Voila. Okay, so I'm gonna wait about a minute and then flip it and then have my plate ready. So I'm gonna grab my sweet crepe plate, which is right here. I already had some made. And again, this is the not public side. And this is the pretty side. See the difference? See how nice that side is? And then this one is the second side once you flip it. It looks a little different. So I've got that ready. Any questions?
Anywhere else in Europe?
I have a question about this honey. Is
Yeah.
the honey warm so it kind of melts the butter?
The honey for the crepe Suzette, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first step is to melt the honey.
And then my butter's just not incorporating, so I just don't know if my honey wasn't warm enough.
Well, you want it just warm.
Okay.
So you melt it so that it's kind of liquidy, and then you let it cool slightly. But it is still warm to melt the butter.
Okay, and then you're just whisking the butter in, right?
Yeah, and you've already added your citrus, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Yeah, then you just need to keep whisking. It takes a while, and you only add 1 tablespoon at a time.
Okay.
You have to emulsify it, kind of like a vinaigrette, you know?
Okay. That sounds good.
This one's cooking slowly. The other thing that is a good trick is to have some sugar handy, and you want to sugar each crepe so that they don't stick to each other, and they add also a nice flavor, texture, etc. So I've sugared this crepe, and it's ready to go to add my new crepe to the top of it. So you could just, when I store these, I put a piece of wax paper in between each crepe if I'm gonna freeze them. But they last in the fridge, I'd say up to 2, even 3 days. You could keep them in the fridge, but after that, you should freeze them if you're not gonna use them. And then to thaw them, you just put them, again, you wrap them airtight, and if you're putting them in the freezer, and then you just thaw them in the refrigerator for a number of hours, and then heat them up in the oven, and they're good to go. Okay, so I've got my my crepe Suzette sauce right here, and all of the butter, the citrus, and the honey are all incorporated. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm going to do that in a minute once these crepes are done, because they're going to have a fun little hot tub experience shortly in that orange sauce. Well, maybe I'll turn it on both burners. That's probably the problem. It wasn't on, I have these double rings here, and it's only on one of them. That's what was going on. So this outer part's not quite cooked. So, is everybody making the crepe Suzettes? Or are you making a different, just the really quick and easy version?
Quick and easy version.
Yeah.
I've already, I've done a fig one for my husband, fig, butter and fig.
Oh, that sounds great.
I did like a little mashed banana for mine.
Ooh.
For the filling, and then I used your sauce, the honey lemon orange sauce. But I put a little yogurt in it and use it as a topping.
Oh, that's a great idea. Wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Very cool. Now, you can see, because my pan wasn't heating right, I only had the inner burner on. The outer part did not cook. So I'm just going to throw this one away. Or, you know, you can eat it if you want, but I don't. So I have so many crepes that I've made in the last 2 days that I'm just don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to make one more. I'm going to clean my pan off. And now that both burners are on, I'm going to heat that again and make another. So this sauce is going to thicken with the butter, but it's also going to reduce a little bit the more you have it simmer, Debbie. So it should be like on medium low, or a little bit under medium.
Okay, so here's what mine looks like. I don't know if you can see my camera.
Yeah, it's got to reduce a bit.
Okay.
That's all. All you have to do is just put it up to a simmer and it reduce. But you need to keep stirring it so it doesn't burn.
Gotcha.
Make sure all the honeys come up from the bottom and stuff, and it's incorporated with the citrus and the butter.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a little bit too viscous right now.
Right.
But mine is like perfect for my crepes. It is just waiting for my crepes to get themselves together. A little hot now. Okay, so I'm going to pour the excess off. And voila. And I always have paper towels ready just in case some of it, you know, needs to be wiped away. And there's
Now,
my,
these, Cindy, these recipes, did you obtain them directly from France?
no, I got them from different classes that I've taken and different experiences I've had and research I've done in different cookbooks.
Oh, okay, because they were really good.
Yeah, I put them together basically from a multitude of different places.
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's kind of lacy looking on the sides. Now the sides are cooking really well. And that's how it should be, because before it wasn't cooking right. So troubleshooting, that was a problem. And now they come away from the sides very easily. And I can lift it up and take a look, take a peek at how it looks underneath. And this one looks good. So I'm gonna flip it. Okay, so I'm going to trade places with my little, oh, I better turn that down. I'm going to turn it way down. And let this finish cooking while this one comes over here so you can see what I'm going to do. And again, I'm going to take this one and flip it over because it only needs like 30 seconds. And for this next part, you probably want to have a fork and your offset spatula to do this next little technique. So I'm going to put my crip out. It'll come out. And voila, it looks good. So there it is. And here's my little orange sauce hot tub. And I'm going to just put the crep in and make sure it gets coated underneath, which it is. And then I'm going to take my fork and my offset spatula and just carefully fold it in half. And this is something you want to kind of do fast so it doesn't get too soggy. And then you fold it in half again. Okay, so if you're entertaining guests, this is a really fun dish. That, again, cooking is a lot about the entertainment and the wow factor. So what you're going to do is you're going to push this one to the side, and then you're going to put the next one in. And you're going to keep putting in the crepes in the hot tub and folding them over till you have enough for the amount of people you have that you're going to serve. So then once you have all that done, usually use a bigger saute pan, and in the middle, you put your brandy and then set it afire. And then everybody like thinks you're the most amazing person in the world because they're so entertained and amazed. So you can plate these individually, or again, the serving table side, this is a perfect dish to do for the wow factor. If you have a big bunch of people over, and if you have a gas stove, it's super easy too, because you can just tip the pan, and after you ladle in a cup of brandy, you can just tip the pan and then it'll flame and burn out. And there you have your guests with their jaws dropped and totally impressed. So this is the crepe Suzette. And I mean, I personally like it with, Julia Child said every woman should own a blowtorch. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote, but she has a video about cooking like peeling peppers and tomatoes, and she uses a blowtorch, which I do own. And the other implement that you should have is this. It's an ISI whipper. So this is a lot of fun too. Voila. So there you have it, Crepe Suzette.